Thank you, Jerome. Wow. I think it's a particularly great day to be at church today. And I feel this way not just because I'm the minister here, but because I felt like it was a particularly challenging week in the world. Not only in the world, but particularly in our nation. And thus, therefore, very much so in my own heart and soul, and I have definitely struggled this week. And if you haven't heard the news, what I'm referring to are the tragic deaths in Charleston. In the midst of reading about these 9 deaths, I remember thinking, thank God for God. Thank God for this church. Thank God for a community that actively embraces and lives this truth of loving all our brothers and sisters, embracing diversity. Thank God for the teachings of unity, and how in this sanctuary and in this place I can come to remember the innate goodness of all human beings. And I can come to remember that the fabric of the universe, the essence of the universe, is harmony and oneness, and not hate or violence. And I can remember that though we all might sin, that what unity teaches is not this concept of original sin, but this idea of each and every one of our original innocence, our innocence. And as I reflected on this, I was reminded of this adorable Father's Day story about a parent and their child, 5-year-old Brian. And the way the story goes is this, that the parents were putting Brian to bed one evening, and they sang to him and read stories to him. And then finally, as it appeared that he was getting sleepy and tired, they went off over to their room. But not long afterwards, I'd say, within 5 minutes before they even had a chance to change out of their day clothes, they hear Brian crying out to them, "Mom, Dad." And so the boy's crying, and the parents rush back into little Brian's room, and they're saying, "What's wrong, honey? What's wrong, sweetie? What's going on?" And Brian tells them, "Mom, Dad, I swallowed a penny, and I think I'm going to die." And fortunately, the father thinks quickly and looks at Brian, pulls out a penny from his pocket, and then pulls it out of Brian's ear with a sleight of hand. And Brian is absolutely delighted. He looks at the penny, and before the father knows it, he grabs the penny and swallows it. And then says, "Do it again, Dad." There was a point in all of our lives when we had this belief in the magical, right? In the mystical, in the idea that all things truly are possible. And not only are all things possible, but my dad can do them all. I mean, that's surely what I believed. I believed that my dad knew everything. I mean, after all, he understood algebra, right? So he knew everything, and he could do absolutely everything. And though my father was only 5'6" tall, he was an absolute giant in my eyes. So today, I want to talk about our relationship to our fathers, how that relationship evolves, but also how that relationship can mirror our relationship to life, to God, to this world, and our experiences in it. In short, we can see it as following 3 steps. The first being essentially idolatry. The second, disillusionment. And the third, though I would say that we don't necessarily always get here, is moving from disillusionment to greater, deeper love and a deeper kind of faith and understanding. So today I want to talk about all 3. So the first point I want to share about today is the fact that all fathers are giants, right? So that's easy to say when we have a positive experience of our fathers, right? When we have a father who goes to our soccer games, a father who tutors us at night, a father that comes home on a regular basis. It's easy to say that if we've had an experience that was positive of our fathers. But when I say that I think all of us see our fathers as giants, I'm also referring to those of us who might have had a less than ideal experience of our fathers. But I would say that even if we had an experience of the absence or lack of presence of our fathers, even if we had an experience of inaction on our father's parts, that we still tend to attribute to our fathers some kind of superpower. Because in that absence, we have somehow given our father the ability to somehow define our value or our worth, right? Even if we don't have that father there, somehow we've ascribed to this human being these superpowers as if this person's presence, love, affection, attention could somehow define our worth. So all of us, in a way, whether we had a positive or negative experience of our fathers, at one point made them out to be giants. But that leads to my second point, which is this fact of life that all giants fall from their pedestals, the pedestals on which we put them. Now this is sort of this fact of life that even if we had an experience that's positive with our dad, that sometimes the disillusionment comes in a later loss of that. Our wonderful father passes away too early. Our father is absent due to addiction. Our father leaves us because of divorce. So that there are ways in which even a positive father experience can be lost. I know with me, there was a point in my life in my late teens and early 20s when my own father disowned me. And looking back, I mean, the real reason is just that I argued with my mom a lot. I was kind of petulant and rebellious, and my father didn't like that. And so from my teenage years through my early 20s, even when I came home from school, from college, even if I was in the same room with him and all my other siblings and my mom, my father would not actually address me or speak to me. So this man sort of falls from grace. I have this experience of disillusionment about what love even means as a result of this experience. It's not only our relationships to people that fail us in life, right? Sometimes we have an experience of our bodies seeming to betray us, whether it's because we have a certain diagnosis or illness, chronic pain. Sometimes it just seems like life in general, the world, the government, our teachers, our society, our ministers, betray us or fail us in some way. This loss is a fact of existence. But the beauty of unity is that what we teach here is a distinction between what we call the facts of life and the truth of life. So the fact of life might be that right now there is some turmoil in the world, but the truth of life is there is an underlying, steadfast harmony and beauty to all things. The great thing about facts is that they can change. The glory of truth is that it is changeless. So in the face of facts that we may not like about the state of the world, we can nevertheless bring forth a knowing of truth that we come together in spiritual community to be reinforced in. What truths are these that we teach? We teach that love is a fundamental truth, that peace and harmony are again the very fabric of existence. These are truths that we, if we are willing, can bring forth into the world. When tragedy strikes, it can be easier. It can be easy to lose sight of beauty and truth and harmony and peace, at least at first. Here in Unity, we recognize, we honor process. We honor that when something happens that renders us somewhat disillusioned, we don't need to escape from our feelings immediately, but we can be in them for a while, right? We can allow whatever feelings of fear and confusion to express themselves fully in and through us. But there is a difference between letting these feelings go through us and letting them live as tenants in the house of our consciousness. So the duty we have together is to remind one another, first of all, the importance of allowing each other to process struggle in the ways that we each are uniquely situated to do so. But then to collectively, as a community, invite one another to take that claim of self-mastery and to make that decision to evict fear and hatred from our hearts ultimately. That is our call, not only to ourselves, but to one another. And that leads to my final point for today, which is that we actually are the giants, right? We are the spiritual masters, or we can be. Because the worst tragedy as we know it, even when it's happening, we might not feel this, but the worst tragedy in life is not that tragedies happen. It's that when they do, we forget, we lose hope, we lose sight of what is possible for our world. We stop believing. The biggest tragedy is that we stop believing after we have become disillusioned, believing in the possibilities for peace, the possibilities for love, the possibilities for greater joy. That's the greatest tragedy. So the reminder today is that we become giants. The title of today's talk, The Man Behind the Curtain, tells a story of disillusionment ending up in wonder and hope and faith, because that's an allusion to the movie, The Wizard of Oz. In that movie, as I think almost everyone here well knows, this gal Dorothy and her 3 companions journey off on the yellow brick road to Oz, right? Because they're in search of this wizard whom they're told is like this all-powerful guy that could grant them their wish, right? So they have this idealized version of the wizard. And so they're marching on, and when they come, oh my goodness, their first experience is that of, you see that it's emerald lights, right? And they enter in, and the wizard has this smoke and these flashing lights and these big objects that make it look like he is like some sort of giant or god. And so they're scared at first, but they're also hopeful because, maybe this guy can give them what they've been looking for. And so they enter timidly, but as they do, somehow, some way, the curtain gets pulled on the wizard. And they're like, oh my God, he's just a little man. And they're like, what are we going to do now? He doesn't have the power to give us what we want. And so they sit there for a while trying to figure out what to do. They start to feel hopeless and start to worry that, the Cowardly Lion says, I'm never going to get courage. The Tin Man says, I'm not going to get a heart. The Scarecrow says, I'm never going to get a brain. But as they sit through that disillusionment, and symbolically, as they actually become willing to embrace this man and they talk to him, they find out while he's not some all-powerful wizard, he does have some wisdom. If you're willing to stay with the disillusionment and move through it, there is some wisdom to be gained from this. And the wisdom he has to offer, it is actually the wizard who tells the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, that lo and behold, the courage that you sought was already within you. The heart that you sought is within you. The wisdom, the intellect that you thought you needed in order to accomplish greater things in this world was already within you. By willing to hold tight and not just go home, but stay with this experience of disillusionment, each of these 3 characters came to learn that what they needed for their well-being, what we need for our well-being, for our moving into the future, is already within each and every one of us. So ultimately, it seems that the journey of idealizing life, right? Looking at the world and going, this is how things should be. That journey of first idealizing life and then becoming disappointed that life, that people, that events don't meet up to those standards. That journey becomes tragic only when we stop right there and we don't move forward into a knowing of the hope that is available to us, not from any wizard outside ourselves, but within ourselves already. In spiritual community, we come together and we point at each other and we remind ourselves of this truth. So today, I invite you, whether it is in a healing that you wish with your own fathers, a healing that you wish with your own relationship to your bodies, a healing that you wish in relationship to the government or society, that we first empower ourselves by being willing to step back, to evict the feelings of betrayal and hurt, and enter into that truth that knows that love is what is true within me and within each and every person in the world. And by that knowing, help to express that love more fully And as we go within today, in our time of meditation, I invite you to consider not only what you will do in consciousness to create a world that is more peaceful and thriving, but what you will do in action in your lives. For instance, it could be as small as, I'm going to call my father, knowing that he's unlikely to say, I love you, but I'm going to call him today, wish him a happy Father's Day, and tell him how very much I love him. Maybe it's an activist step that you take socially. When you do, remember to bring a sense of love and peace to the activity of your life. Remember to bring a consciousness of peace to the activity of your life, so that indeed, from a unity perspective, we can start to birth a world that does more closely match these truths and these ideals. And so I invite you now, first, as always, to go within as we prepare now for meditation.
Make room for harmony to begin with us, within us. We make room first within our own consciousness, so that peace and love can prevail in the world. As above, so below. As in our consciousness, so is it made manifest in the world. As we know love and peace and joy and courage in our own hearts, we see that express connect with our neighbors right here in our seats. And we feel that bond with the people sitting right next to us. We feel the ways in which we are indeed all one. One life, one love, one presence, and one radiant investment in what was false and place our faith instead on spiritual truth. And as we more fully bring our attention into this room and back into our lives, we feel the power and the hope and the strength of that indwelling spirit at the depths of our being, which lend us encouragement and zeal, passion and clarity. As we move forward into our days and weeks, knowing exactly what is ours to be, to love, and to do in order to create a more thriving, peaceful, prosperous, healthy, and vibrant world for ourselves and one another, for this opportunity to draw from the depths of our own being. Let us